If you're interested in finally achieving your goals, I'm going to give you the playbook here because as a clinical psychologist who has a psychotherapy practice, my job is to help my clients meet their goals. That's my goal. My goal is to help my clients meet their goals. Psychotherapy is this very, very broad space in which a client can bring any goal that they might have for their lives, whether it be to change their emotional functioning, whether it be to overcome limiting beliefs, whether it be to build a support network, whether it be to thrive in their career, whatever it is. Psychotherapy is a space where the client brings their desires, their deepest desires and their wants, and we help formulate that in terms of goals and how we can use the psychotherapy process to help them get there. So psychological science has a lot to say about how to achieve your goals. And in this video, I'm going to share with you 10 principles that are evidence-based that I use personally in my psychotherapy practice and also in my personal life to help me achieve my goals. These are evidence-backed tips. I've tried to collect in the scientific literature the 10 most evidence-based tips that are going to help you achieve your goals. These are 10 things that are going to make it more likely for you to achieve your goals than not. So let's jump into it. And stay until the end, because at the end of the video, I'm going to tell you about how to access a free resource, which is basically a video training that allows you to walk through 5 questions that I think distills the wisdom of all of this scientific knowledge into a 5-question process that you can ask yourself to ensure that you're going to achieve your goals. It increases the likelihood that you're going to hit those goals that you're after. So stay until the end where I'll tell you a bit about how to access that free resource for you. So the first step I have for you is to understand the motivation behind the goal. Understand the underlying reason why you've even set this goal in the first place. This is a step that most people skip, but in psychotherapy, we make sure that our clients don't skip this step. Psychotherapy is this space that occurs once a week on an hourly long basis. So there's a lot of time, there's a lot of speaking and listening. And in that space, we actually create the kind of conditions for our client to open up about where their goals come from. What is the context and the history out of which this desire has been constructed? What is the underlying desire behind the goal? Unlike many more managerial or logistical or logical types, psychotherapists often try to identify the underlying motivations, the emotional reasons behind why they want to pursue what they want to. And there are a few reasons for this. Firstly, it helps you persist when things get difficult. So if you know why you're doing something, it'll make you more likely to persist, to persevere. For example, if you have to do a bit of overtime at work, if you know the reason behind that is to provide for your family, that gives you much more of a basis to persist in that activity compared to when you're not aware of the underlying motivation for setting that goal of overtime. If you set the goal of overtime, you have to know the underlying motivation is to provide for my family. That gives you a much stronger foundation to be able to persist in that activity. That's an example of how this can happen. But the other reason why it's important to understand your motivations is because sometimes people pursue goals that waste their time, to be frank. A lot of people are just running straight ahead without first inspecting, why do I actually want this? And would this goal actually bring satisfaction to my life? There's this phenomenon known as postgraduate depression, where as soon as people graduate with their degree, they start to feel low. Their mood actually drops. They're anticipating that they'll feel amazing and elated, but oftentimes their mood drops when they achieve their degree. And what the scientists say is that a lot of the times in life, we anticipate that once we hit the goal, we'll get some form of satisfaction that doesn't actually come. And so when it doesn't come, when you've met your goal and that underlying assumption about the desire that will be fulfilled isn't fulfilled, that's when you start to feel empty and depressed. And so it's very important for you to understand the motivations behind your goals so that you don't mislead yourself in terms of what you really want. The second tip to increase the likelihood that you'll achieve your goals is to make sure that you set specific goals. Don't set vague goals. A vague goal is something like, I want to exercise more, or I want to be healthier. A more specific goal would be, I want to exercise 3 times a week in the mornings for about an hour, and I want to do this on a consistent basis for 6 months. That is a specific goal. And the reason it's important to set specific goals, and the reason why setting specific goals makes it more likely that you'll achieve the goal, is because you can't hit a target that you can't see. Abraham Lincoln once said that a goal well set is halfway reached. A goal well set is already halfway reached. That's a bit of timeless wisdom that's extremely true, according to the empirical research. There have been lots of studies that have shown that people who set vague goals are less likely to hit their goals. People who set specific goals are more likely to hit those goals. So the second tip to make it more likely to achieve your goals is to make your goals more specific. Think about, how can I make this goal measurable? How can I define the goal in such a way that I'll know exactly when I hit it? If you say I want to be healthy, you don't know when you've hit that goal. But if you say I want to gym 3 times a week for an hour at a time, you'll know by the end of the week whether you hit that goal or not. That can improve motivation, it can improve dedication, it can improve focus, and it can improve a sense of progress, because you'll know when you're failing and when you're succeeding. Now, the third tip is to break your goals down into smaller, more manageable tasks. Once you know the underlying motivation and you have this specific goal, you want to break that goal down into manageable tasks. The reason you want to do this is because it's easier to digest smaller elements piece by piece. This is a psychological strategy called chunking, and chunking has been shown to be really effective in terms of working toward a goal. A lot of people out there are just setting big goals, and then they're trying to move toward that, and they feel really overwhelmed. A lot of people feel really burdened or obligated by this huge goal, and if your goal is too far away, sometimes it's difficult to see the progress that you're making toward it. Just think about when you're driving towards something that's really far away on the road. As you're moving, even if you're moving at a high speed, sometimes that thing in the distance, that mountain or that building or whatever it is, looks like it's not really moving. And that can be really demotivating when you're trying to move toward a goal and you're traveling really fast, but you don't see any progress toward it. I remember in my own life, I wanted to start jogging. And so I set the goal to run a 5-kilometer race. It wasn't actually a race, it was a bit more of a casual fun run thing. But I remember during that time, it was absolute torment to think about having to go for a 5-kilometer run, because I kind of sucked at running. I hadn't been running until then. And also, in terms of my running, I had just come off a knee injury that I was recovering from. And so I was anticipating the slog, and I was running with people who were way fitter than myself. And so I was comparing myself, and then I felt incapable. But it was because I didn't break this down into smaller, more manageable tasks. When I did break it down into more smaller, manageable tasks, and when I told myself I'm just going to run 5 minutes on a treadmill, I started to make more progress in those weeks than I had with trying to jog 5 kilometers, because I wasn't even making it to the jogging field because of that goal, because of how overwhelming that big task felt. But once I broke it down, that's when I actually started to see progress. I was going for progress over perfection. This is a piece of wisdom that's been with us for a long time. I think even Alexander the Great's father had the saying, divide and conquer. That's how he was so successful in lots of his military campaigns. Divide and conquer. And that's something that you can do for yourself as well. If you have a goal, divide it and conquer it. The fourth tip I have for you to help you increase the chances of achieving your goals is to use implementation intentions. An implementation intention can be understood by contrasting it with a goal intention. A goal intention is when you intend to meet a goal. So for example, when I wanted to be healthier, that was my goal intention, to be healthier. But an implementation intention is about how you're going to implement that. What are the actions that you're going to take in order to meet that goal intention? So a goal intention is what you want. An implementation intention is what you're going to do about what you want. So, for example, when I wanted to get healthier, an implementation intention was, when I wake up, I'll get straight into gym clothes and drive to the gym. It was an if-then statement. If I wake up, then I get into these gym clothes. And an if-then statement is a really simplified and easy way to understand how to create implementations for yourself. An implementation intention is best served with an if-then statement. This is according to the research by Professor Peter Gollwitzer, who's come up with this work. So think about your goal. Whatever your goal is, what is the if-then statement that you can create that will help you to implement the goal intention? I remember I heard a researcher once who said that he was trying to learn how to floss. That was his goal. So his goal intention was to start flossing, but his implementation intention was, if I put down my toothbrush, then I pick up the floss. And through that example, he created a little system where as soon as the toothbrush hit the sink, the floss was picked up. And through that, he bootstrapped the process of flossing. And he actually became a lifelong flosser after that. But this is something you can do with your goals as well. Think about, what are the ifs that I can use to attach an action to? Because that's where it's really useful. It's not useful to just say, I'm going to do this. You have to say what the context is that's going to trigger the action. That's the if. And for the researcher, the if was, if I put my toothbrush down. So once he puts his toothbrush down, he picks up the floss. That's the if then. And that's how you can use implementation intentions to increase the chance of achieving your goal. The fifth tip is to focus on the process. Don't just get caught up in the outcome, because most of your life is process. Most of your life is the journey toward. It's not the destination. And it's not just for you to enjoy yourself, but this enjoyment actually makes the progress sustainable. People are more likely to persist in goals when they enjoy what they're doing. This is something that's really underrated in the world of behavior change. The idea that enjoyment is a sustainable strategy. So even as you work toward your goals, you need to make it such that you still have some life balance. You need to make it such that you're managing your stress levels. You need to make your goal pursuit journey enjoyable. Because trust me, you cannot compete against a person who enjoys pursuing their goals. Regardless of how hard you work, regardless of what your talents are, if you're up against someone who enjoys the process of training and development and growth and learning, you're not going to be able to compete with that person. They'll outwork you every day of the week. And so you need to understand how you can make the process more enjoyable. And that you can do that in many ways. One way is if you're on let's say a fitness journey, you want to be more active. Then in that fitness journey, what you can do is you can incorporate sports that you like. So don't just think about what's the optimal gym routine, as I did when I started gymming. Think about what sports you enjoy. I remember when I did this in my own life, I really enjoy football. And so I incorporated that into my workouts. I took a football to the gym, and they have a little arena there with goalposts that you can use. And I started kicking the ball around, and I enjoyed that. And it made my gym routines more sustainable because I looked forward to going. And so I became more active in that process. The point here is, whatever you're doing, don't just torture yourself with it. Make it enjoyable. The sixth tip to ensure that you're achieving your goals is to monitor progress. You want to be able to track the progress that you're making toward the goal. This makes you more likely to succeed. It's not just my opinion, because in 2016, Dr. Benjamin Harkin, who's a psychologist and researcher, he put this idea to the test. He asked the question, does measuring your progress make it more likely for you to succeed? And the answer was an astounding yes. And he didn't just get that yes from one study. He looked at all the studies that tested this idea. He took all of those hundreds of studies, put them together, and came up with a final conclusion. This is something in research that we call a meta-analysis. It's one of the highest forms of evidence that you can come across. And so when a meta-analysis tells you something, you should listen very carefully. And in this case, with Dr. Benjamin Harkin, what he found the meta-analysis saying is that if you keep track of the score, you're more likely to score. You're more likely to score more. So progress and measuring progress leads to a better chance of succeeding. It's the actual measurement of that. So, for example, when I was on a bit of a weight loss journey, I had this scale that measures your weight and your body fat percentage and things like that. And I noticed that as I started to write down my weight on a daily basis and my body fat percentage, I realized that gave me a bit more motivation. That gave me a bit of a boost, and I was able to see when I was going wrong. Something that I would not have noticed if my weeks and days were just a blur where I wasn't focused on moving toward my goal. But actually tracking that data made it more likely for me to succeed. So, if progress is in view, success is cued. You need to understand the power of monitoring your progress and how likely that makes it that you will achieve your goal. The 7th tip I have for you to make it more likely to achieve your goals is to visualize your success. Visualize your success. You see, when you visualize your success, what you're doing is you're creating mental images of what it will be like to actually have that success. What does it look like at the top of the mountain? When you get there, what will it look like? Research has shown that if you imagine certain scenarios, it activates your brain in a similar way as though the thing is actually occurring. That's why if you imagine your favorite food, you can start to salivate a bit, because your body is responding to the mental image as though the food is actually there, even though it's just a mental image. But that mental image is so powerful that it can cause you to salivate. If you're imagining a food you like, you can begin to salivate because of the power of imagery. So imagining something has more power than we tend to give it credit for. It has the ability to activate our body and our brain in a specific way. And you can use this to your advantage. You want to visualize the success. You want to visualize the triumph. That can boost your motivation. But there's one small caveat here that you need to listen to and you need to be aware of, which is you don't want to just visualize success without also visualizing what the possible setbacks, how to deal with the possible setbacks, and also what you need to do to get there. You have to also visualize what you're going to do, the actions you're going to take, and how you're going to avoid possible dangers. Because research has shown that people who just visualize the success without understanding what they have to do and how they can navigate challenges, those people aren't more likely to succeed because they actually become a bit complacent. They almost feel like they're already at the top of the mountain without having to put in effort. So if you want to visualize success, make sure you're visualizing it while also imagining the possible pitfalls, what you can do about those possible pitfalls, and the actions you need to take to move forward to the top of the mountain. Bo Bennett says visualization is just daydreaming with a purpose. I think Helen Keller also commented on the power of visualization. She said something like, it's horrible being blind, but what's worse than being blind is having sight with no vision. Sight is here, the vision is here. So use visualization to your advantage. The 8th tip I have for you to increase the chances of achieving your goals is to learn from feedback, to learn from any sort of failure that you have and to use that failure as feedback. A lot of people are not successful in achieving their goals because they get bogged down by their first failure or their second or their third, when the truth is that the master has failed more times than the beginner has even tried, as that famous saying goes, which is very true. The master has failed more times than the beginner has even tried. That is so true, and it's relevant to you as well in your goal pursuit. And that's what the research shows. The people who are most willing to fail and are able to incorporate that failure into their next strategy, their next attempt, those are the people who are most successful because they're adaptable, they're flexible, they can take failure and they can turn it into something good. They can turn it into progress. They're like alchemists of success. So that's something that you need to learn how to do in your own life. How can I use failure as an opportunity to grow and to learn? This is called by the world-renowned psychologist Carol Dweck, this is called a growth mindset. Because you're not assuming that it's the current version of yourself that has to achieve everything in your life right now. You're aware of the fact that you can change, you can grow, you can learn. And so if there's a challenge or if there's a goal that you don't currently feel capable of attaining, having a growth mindset allows you to say, the current version of me can't do this. But future Nevern, you better watch out for him. The 9th tip that I have for you is to practice self-compassion. Self-compassion makes it more likely for you to achieve your goals. This is a bit counterintuitive and it sounds a bit controversial because most people think that if you're compassionate with yourself, you might go easy on yourself. You might cut yourself a lot of slack. But the research shows the exact opposite. The research shows that the people who are highly self-critical are the ones who avoid pursuing their goals. Because if you're highly self-critical, if you're constantly beating up yourself, saying how you're not worthy, how you're not capable, if you don't believe in yourself, and then you fail on the way to your goal, you're not going to persist in it. You don't persist in things if you feel you're not capable, if you're very harsh on yourself. Whereas someone who's self-compassionate has the ability to be supportive toward themselves. Oh man, I failed now and it really sucks. And I'm being kind to myself and I'm thinking about how can I support myself with moving forward. That's what self-compassion is. It's a willingness to look at your suffering and a desire and taking action on preventing that suffering and alleviating it. And that's not a bad thing. To be aware of your suffering and wanting to prevent and alleviate it and taking action on that is not a bad thing. And in fact, it's beneficial to your goal pursuit. And this is not selfish compassion. This is not trying to get yourself off the hook over responsibilities and obligations that you have. This is kind support. It's when you fail, you pick yourself up and you support yourself in moving forward again. That is real self-compassion. And that kind of self-compassion makes it more likely that you'll achieve your goals. And then step 10 that makes it more likely to achieve your goals is to make sure that you're thinking about how you need to learn in this moment to achieve that goal. What do you need to learn? What kind of mentor do you need to contact? What kind of supportive environment do you need? So step 10 is all about thinking about what you need and creating the context and environment for you to flourish with this goal. It's just like with a tree. A tree sort of has the inbuilt goal to grow. But to meet that objective, it needs a specific environment. It needs water, it needs soil, it needs nutrients, it needs all of these things for it to grow and flourish and survive and thrive. You're the same, and your goal is the same. If you have a specific goal, you need a specific kind of context, a specific kind of environment that will make it more likely for you to succeed at that goal. You might not need water, sunlight, and nutrients like the tree, but you might need other things. If your goal, for example, is to be healthier, then you need a bit of a healthier environment. You need friends who can keep you accountable. You need to join a running group. You create that kind of social and physical environment that will help you thrive in this goal. And that is the 10th evidence-based principle to help you flourish. Now, I said I would give you a free resource to help you achieve your goals, to make it more likely that you'll get there. And that free resource is found in the video description. So if you open up the video description, you'll find a link from my website, toolsoftherapy.com. If you click on that link, you'll be taken to a video about how to achieve your goals. In that video, what you're going to find is a 5-step process. So basically that 5-step process has 5 questions that I want you to answer in real time. So I'll walk you through the questions, and those questions are basically going to ask you about things related to your goal. And then we're going to help you tailor your goal setting and goal pursuit process to match those 5 questions. Because the 5 questions that I've chosen are basically the distillation of this video. I've taken the best scientific bits in this video and I've transformed it into 5 questions that you can ask yourself in sequence. And once you've answered those 5 questions, you'll be way more likely to achieve your goals. This is not according to me, it's not my opinion. This is according to the best psychological evidence and science that I could find based on the topic. So if that's something you're interested in, you can click on that video in the video description below, and I'll see you there.